Week 11 of the college football season is upon us. We are bringing the plane in for a landing. We can see the runway, and we're on the descent. And I guess a weird little bit of a comparison there is when you go on a road trip, or not a road trip, but when you go somewhere and you have to fly in, that final little piece of descent is like a sigh of relief. You know, whether you have flight anxiety and you don't like getting on a plane or whatever else, that last little bit is just like you're ready to get on the ground. There's just a sigh of relief when you get the plane on the ground. The contrast of that is college football. If we're using the analogy of a flight, we don't want the plane to land. College football, man, we live for this stuff. We love it. If you're tuned into this show, obviously you're a college football sicko like I am. You enjoy the sport as much as I do. The greatest game ever played, football. Greatest sport. People will say greatest pastime is baseball. Nah, football, baby. All the way. Welcome back to another episode of After the Whistle. It's me, Colby Allen. Whether you've been locked in with us for 1 episode, 2 episodes, 3 episodes, or hey, maybe you've been locked in since episode 1 of last year in 2024. Either way, I appreciate you for tuning in, whether you tune in on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, or YouTube. Appreciate you listening. We're going to keep you dialed in here on the college football season, keep you up to date on all the latest news, whether it be recruiting, transfer portal, the games, betting lines, everything else. And as you know, Thursday is the prediction show, previewing the weekend's action. We're going to get right into it here in just a minute, but first, we had the first college football playoff rankings of 2025 drop on Tuesday night. If you were able to tune in and you got to see it, this is not going to be news to you. I'm going to go through 25 to 1. I'm going to give my thoughts, my opinions on who I think's too high, who I think's too low, some questions that I have about the rankings and what the committee was thinking on some things. But if you were able to watch it, good on you. Maybe you have cable or something like that. I've recently switched providers. I know we talked about it a little bit on last week's episode, how YouTube TV just gave a big middle finger to the college football community, the people that watch, ESPN or whatever for the sports. And that's what I have YouTube TV for. I love the ability of the quad box to be able to divide my screen into 4 games. I can watch 4 games at once. There's been times this year, certain weekends when there's a lot of football on, a lot of games I want to watch. There's been times where I've had the quad box going on the TV. I've had my laptop going on YouTube TV with a game on, and I've had my phone with a game on. 6 games at one time, because that's just the kind of person I am. Call me crazy, call me, whatever you want to call it. Heavily invested, I guess that's the best term to put it. Some people could say crazy, whatever tag you want to put on that, it's me. So, first playoff rankings of 2025 were revealed, and we're going to go 25 to 1. We're going to call these out, and couple key things here. And there's a few discrepancies between the AP and the college football playoff rankings that I would like to go over here. But first, we're going to start with number 25, and that is the Tennessee Volunteers at 25, sitting at 6-3. Pitt at 24, Washington at 23. Mizzou at 22, Michigan 21, Iowa 20, USC 19, Miami 18, Georgia Tech 17, Vanderbilt 16, Louisville 15th, Virginia 14th, Utah 13, Oklahoma 12, Texas 11, Notre Dame 10, Oregon 9, Texas Tech 8, BYU 7, Ole Miss 6, Georgia 5, Alabama 4, A&M 3, Indiana 2, and the number 1 team in college football, which you will find no argument here, is the Ohio State Buckeyes. A couple key things I'd like to note. The committee, we have been told over, since college football playoff has been going on really, that head-to-head matters. Results on the field matter. Eye test, to me, is one thing that really matters, but the committee, and if I were to give this a grade, if I were to give the initial CFP rankings a grade, I would give it a solid B minus. When I was in college, hey, not a bad effort there. It's good. Showed you maybe studied okay, maybe you prepared and you passed it. You made a B, went home, maybe told your mom. Maybe your mom said she was proud of you. Maybe your mom was disappointed. I don't know. Maybe you had a mom that demanded A's of you. But us as college football fans, I think we need to demand an A effort from the CFP committee because a lot rides on this. The initial ranking, a lot rides on where they rank these teams initially in this first set of rankings. And what we're looking at is we're seeing one thing that really sticks out. And I'm not going to try to sit on this soapbox very long because I know we have a few games that I'd really like to get into. Don't want to make this episode 2 hours because I could talk about the committee and I could talk about the CFP for a while. What I will say about these initial rankings is if head-to-heads matter, why are we seeing a team like Notre Dame at number 10 and a team that beat Notre Dame like Miami at number 18? Identical records, 2 losses, strength of schedule favors Miami. But to me, to have Notre Dame here, and if you listen to the show last year, you heard me go on and on and on about Notre Dame almost every weekend, about how they didn't need to be ranked where they were at because of the Northern Illinois loss early in the season last year. And here we are again having the same discussion about Notre Dame being ranked somewhere where they shouldn't be ranked. I don't think Notre Dame's the 10th best team in the country. You'll find no quarrel from a lot of people in that regard. They're not number 10. I think Texas is better than them. I think OU's better than them. I think Utah on a neutral field is better than Notre Dame. Yes, I know. The Utah Utes. To me, the same Utah Utes team that lost to BYU, I think on a neutral field, I think they're better than Notre Dame. That hot take, maybe, whatever. But head-to-heads have to matter. But the problem is what we're seeing a committee that is ranking schools based on trajectory. And to me, trajectory is subjective. We look at 2 teams in contrast, Miami and Notre Dame. We look at Notre Dame, who got their 2 losses earlier than Miami did. Miami is being seen to be on the downward swing, while Notre Dame is seen to be on the upward swing. And to me, that's a dangerous precedent that they set as a committee. And I've always had a problem with people saying, well, it's good to go ahead and get your losses out of the way early, because then you get rewarded for, whatever. And to me, I don't like that. It doesn't matter if you lose in week 2, week 3, week 10, week 11. A loss is a loss. And at the end of the day, the head-to-heads have to matter. If the head-to-heads don't matter, then why do we even rank teams? But you see here the committee basically putting out there, Notre Dame's the 10th ranked team in the country. They're not. Not to me, not to a lot of people. But here they are to where the rest of their schedule, very winnable. They don't have to play in a conference championship game. And they're favored in every contest they have for the rest of the season by all the metrics you've seen or we've seen. And I just don't, I'm trying to think of how to word it. I do have some Notre Dame fans that listen to the show, and I'm not coming after y'all. I'm not, but I will say the only people that you will find that think Notre Dame is the 10th ranked team in the country are Notre Dame fans. There's not many people that will make that argument. Miami was better than Notre Dame on the field. Yes, Miami has lost a couple games recently, whereas Notre Dame lost their games earlier in the season. But that shouldn't be a punishment to Miami. They have the same record. Therefore, Miami, in my opinion, should be ranked higher. Now, where would I put Miami and Notre Dame? You can't put Miami ahead of Louisville because Louisville beat them. So I would have Miami, honestly, somewhere in that neighborhood of 16, 17, where Vanderbilt and Georgia Tech are at. And I would have Notre Dame behind them. But the fact that Notre Dame got their losses out of the way early seems to be beneficial. And I don't like that argument. I've never liked that argument. And I've never liked the precedent that sets from this committee, that if a team wins 2 games early, here we are over a month away from Notre Dame's last loss, they're rewarded with a top 10 position in the initial rankings, and they're in the driver's seat to run the table and not play a conference championship, essentially get a bye, and go into the playoff and just skate right in there, just like they did last year. To me, if you don't join a conference, and this is a little bit of a hot take. I think I said it last year, and I caught some people really bit back on me on this. But I will say, if you're going to be a team that refuses to join a conference, you should be treated like a Group of 5 school, and but the thing about it is, Notre Dame would get the Group of 5 bid every single year. You're not in a conference. You're not a Power 4 team. So you got to fight for the at-large bid. The at-large Group of 5 bid. That's the way I see it. If you don't want to join a conference, we shouldn't be rewarding it. We shouldn't be rewarding a team that, this year, yeah, their schedule was a lot tougher this year than it was last year, but the 2 toughest teams that Notre Dame's played, they've lost to. And now we're putting them at 10. That's the one area to me that really, infuriates me, I guess. And that's why my grade is a B- on this, on these initial rankings, because you look at Texas and Oklahoma. Who won that game on a neutral field? Texas won, right? Well, Texas is 11, Oklahoma's 12. Simple, right? You would think. But here we are again having the same discussion that we had last year. Brian Kelly, we're talking about the same things. Here we are talking about the same things over and over and over again. Notre Dame going to continue to do this, going to continue to lose games that they, like all intents and purposes, should have won against Texas Tech, or Texas A&M, excuse me. But they didn't. Got beat by Miami. But we're rewarding it. So we've got to put, Notre Dame doesn't wear a logo on their helmet, but we've got to put the logo aside for a second. We got to put the recency bias aside. Yes, I know that Notre Dame made the playoff last year, but we can't let that cloud our judgment into thinking that this is a top 10 outfit in South Bend. It's not. There is no team ahead of Notre Dame that I would think that Notre Dame would have a chance at beating. Likewise, there's 3 or 4 teams behind them on a neutral field that I would pick outright to beat them. Just a little food for thought there. But other than that, I feel like the rankings are pretty solid, given the fact. There's a couple things that we'd have to talk about too, as far as like the soundbite of, will this be the first year that we see a 3-loss SEC team make the playoff? And does the ACC deserve a playoff spot? I said that the other day. People, came back on me on that. But I will say this. The ACC, to me, auto bids, bye. Let's get rid of them. I can't stand the auto bid. Conference champion can be ranked. What if we have an unranked conference champ in the ACC? I'm not saying that's going to happen this year, but I'm saying in the future, let's say any conference, there's an unranked conference champion. Or they're going to get an automatic bid just because they won the conference. That's all fine and good. They won the conference, but were you good enough to make the playoff? And that, to me, is where some changes need to be made. Top 12 teams go regardless of winning their conference. Quit with the auto bids. Do away with the Group of 5 bid, although I get it. We're trying to make Group of 5 teams feel included, but let's not kid ourselves and think that a Group of 5 team has a shot at winning a national championship. Let's not kid ourselves to think that Memphis, on a neutral field, has a chance to keep it within 30 of Ohio State. They don't. Likewise, last year, Boise State. No. Do away with the Group of 5 bid. Do away with the auto bids for conference champions. Rank the top 12 teams and play football. That's what we're here to do. So, my soapbox lasted a lot longer than it needed to, but that's just a few things I needed to get off my chest. Other than that, I feel the rankings are pretty solid, like I said. So, other than that, you can make arguments. Who should be number one? Indiana, Ohio State. I get it. I've seen them. People have made the argument for Texas A&M to be number one. We'll sit there and we'll talk about that. That's a situation to me where the eye test matters. To me, Ohio State's best team in the country right now, based on the eye test. Now, Ohio State hasn't really been tested, but is that a testament of how good they are? You play the schedule that's in front of you. They can't help the fact that, a lot of these teams in the Big Ten have fallen off. Their schedule looked a little bit better at the start of the season. Now it doesn't. No, they beat Texas. That win's looking better and better every week. But to me, eye test matters in that regard for the top 3 teams. Eye test would tell me Ohio State's better than Indiana. Indiana right now looks better than Texas A&M. So 1, 2, 3, no argument there for me whatsoever. On the other note of the 3-loss conference champ, the 3-loss SEC team getting in the playoff. Let's paint a scenario. Let me paint a scenario for you real quick, and then we'll get into what you all tuned in for, and that's the predictions. Texas, let's just say for a second, Texas ranked 11th in these initial rankings. Let's say that Texas goes to Athens next weekend and beats Georgia. Let's just say that Texas goes to Athens and beats Georgia. That would put Texas firmly inside the top 10. I would say 7th or 8th. And then let's say that on the last week of the regular season, they're playing Texas A&M in Austin, and let's say Texas A&M wins by a last-second field goal and beats Texas. Texas finishes the year 9-3. Where do they fall in the rankings? And does that team have a chance, with their strength of schedule, which is one of the tops in the country, does that team have a chance to make the playoff at 9-3? Love to hear your thoughts on it. Reach out to me. Let's talk about it. All right, let's get into the predictions. So, first game, let's get the snoozer out of the way first. That's what I like to do. So, all right, get my notes out. Let's go over this. And this is one of those games, man. Get your energy drink ready. Your Red Bull, your Monster, your Reign, your C4. Heck, dry scoop some pre-workout and chase it with some water. Whatever you got to do to stay awake for this one. Because 7 p.m. Saturday night, Florida State playing Clemson in Death Valley. This game looked a lot more intriguing earlier in the season, and frankly, I'm kind of pissed off about it because this game, they robbed us of a good football game. This was supposed to be top 10 matchup in Death Valley at night. Florida State was on the rebound after they beat Bama. They looked really good. Started the season 3-0. Clemson was one of the favorites to win the college football playoff national championship. And then chaos happened. These teams just fell apart right in front of our eyes. And that's college football for you. But this game looked a lot better. Man, this was one of those games after like week 2 or 3. I was just like, man, that is going to be a big one. That's possibly going to be, the winner of that game is going to be in firm control of the ACC, firm control of the playoff race, and firm control at a bid at a national championship, especially after we watched Florida State play in week 1. I mean, beating Alabama, that was big. People try to downplay that win, but look at how Alabama's playing right now. It's really not. It's still a good win. It's just the fact that Florida State has gone on to lose 4 games after the fact. So, like I said, get your energy drink ready, pound it, dry scoop, whatever you got to do. But these teams match up horrendously. Both of these teams defensively, Clemson in particular, 103rd in pass defense. Florida State, statistically, has a better defense on paper. But, it's like I said, here's the paper. These games aren't really decided on that sheet of paper. I've got a ton of notes on this game. The bright spot here for Florida State, to me, the number one offense in the country. And, this only bright spot for this Florida State team because they do have a lot of issues. So does Clemson. This game's going to come down to who wants it more. A couple key areas. Clemson currently favored by 2.5. Mainly just the home field swing there, really. This game pretty much coin flip for me. But I think Clemson's getting the points because it is in Death Valley. But when you look at the metrics here, Clemson's offense, 13th in the country in passing. They're not very good at running the football, and that's been an area of concern for me for Clemson this year, ranked 109th in the country in running the football, about 123 yards a game on average. And Florida State, in regard to that, is kind of middle of the pack, top third of the country really in stopping the run. So to me, the key area there is going to be Florida State stopping the run, which what we've seen from Clemson, not very hard to do. And neither of these teams really, Florida State's the better scoring offense. Clemson ranked 70th, Florida State 33rd. First. 7th in scoring, first in total yards. So it's going to come down to, one, who takes care of the football. And that's an area to me where Clemson is terrible at taking care of the football. They're 114th in the country with a -5 turnover margin. They give the ball up, and they do not take it away as often as other teams. Another area to focus on here, if you're going to be paying attention to this game, I probably won't, but I know some people that listen to me that are Florida State fans. You'll be watching this one. I also have some people that listen to this podcast that are Clemson fans. I know y'all are going to be tuned in. I know you're going to be watching regardless of record. Florida State hates Clemson. Clemson hates Florida State. Clemson's 93rd in college football in red zone defense. They allow their opponents to score on 86% of the trips inside the red zone. And then Florida State's red zone offense, top 30 in the country, about 90% in the red zone. So the key for Clemson here to win this football game at home, stop Florida State in the red zone, hold them to field goals. Florida State's offense, still very high flying, still very dynamic. Gus Malzahn calling the plays. They can put up points. They can put them up in bunches. I just read the stats off to you. 510 yards a game, 40 points a game. They can put up the points. They can move the ball up and down the field. Clemson's going to have to buckle down on defense. You can't give up. You give up 45 to Duke. To me, Florida State's offense, better than Duke's. But you give up 46 to Duke, 45, 46, doesn't really matter. Tomato. That's horrible, especially for Clemson, a team that in past we've seen some really good defenses there in Clemson, South Carolina. We're not seeing that this year. Florida State, I feel like last weekend against Wake Forest, got their offense back in a little bit of a rhythm, a little bit of a groove, got it rolling a little bit. I don't trust Clemson here. I don't trust Florida State. And Clemson's record at home over the last couple seasons, horrendous. Death Valley ain't Death Valleying no more. No one's scared to play there. So I like Florida State in this spot to go in, flip the script on them. Clemson, like I said, favored by 2.5. I like Florida State outright. I like Florida State to win this game 30-27 in Death Valley. Shout out Florida State fans. Y'all deserve it. Y'all need to win. Y'all need this win here. Like, it's been a season where you started on a high, you started way up there, and now you've kind of just been crashing. The helicopter's been in a tailspin ever since, the first loss of the year. It's just been tail spinning down. Somebody's got to level it out. Somebody's got to right the ship, and I think you do it in Death Valley this Saturday. Next game on the slate here, Northwestern at USC. And I know what you're saying. Why are we talking about this football game? Because a lot of people think USC is going to, blow Northwestern out. Hear me out for a minute. USC favored in the spot by 14.5, but a late night Friday game, 9 p.m. kick. Short week for USC. They've gone coast to coast. They played at Nebraska last week. They go back to California, and then they're back on a Friday night. Short week, coast-to-coast trip. You wanted to play with the big boys, Lincoln Riley. You wanted to play with the big boys in the Big Ten, USC. Well, now you've got these horrendous road trips to deal with it. You wanted the money. You wanted the TV rights. You wanted the dollars, everything. Well, now you got it. USC, one of the best offenses in the country. I mean, pretty much top 10 across the board in every metric. Yards per game, they're averaging about 506. They're passing the ball 10th in the country at 302 yards a game and putting up about 40 points a game, ranked 8th in the country in that metric as well. Running the football, in past, we've seen USC teams that, have just relied heavily on the pass. They're still top 20 in running the football, about 203 yards a game. So when we look at a couple key things really stuck out when I was doing my deep dive into these teams, taking my notes, looking at the numbers, looking at everything here, is this Northwestern defense. Quietly, top 20 in yards given up, 13th in pass yards given up, 13th in scoring. 16.8 points a game in that regard, only giving up 165 yards against the pass a game. USC's strength, obviously, passing the football. Jaden Mayaba, Makai Lemon, they'll light you up. So the big three for USC, Jaden Mayaba currently with 2,315 yards on the year, 15 touchdowns, 5 picks, completing about 65% of his passes. Makai Lemon, who I think I said it on last week's show, one of the guys that you don't hear a lot about because he gets overshadowed by a lot of the tier 1 receivers in college football, but 776 yards on 50 catches, 6 touchdowns. Having a quietly good year for the USC Trojans there is Makai Lemon. And when we look at Northwestern's offense, atrocious. Like, outside of the top 100 in all the key metrics, really. I mean, nearly outside the top 100. I mean, 91st in offense a game, 118th in passing, 102 in scoring, 30th in rushing. Now, I'll talk about that stat a little bit. That's a key one for me in this spot. 30th in running the football. Northwestern also, horrible turnover margin, -4, 105th in the country. The one thing Northwestern can't do in this football game is give USC more opportunities. If Northwestern wants to pull the upset here, which, over a 2-touchdown dog, this is a weird spot. And I know I misspoke. Somebody's going to correct me on that. This game is in L.A. So, my bad on that. But before, I'm get ahead of the 8 ball there. Get ahead of the 8 ball. But still doesn't change the fact it's a short week for USC. Friday night, spot after going to Lincoln, still doesn't change the fact. Now, it's not a complete road trip, not a complete circle type thing, like I said, but, either way. Like I said, becoming a frequent occurrence here. Takes a big man to admit when he's wrong, So here we go. But horrible turnover margin for Northwestern. USC 50th in the country. I think they're +2. And both of these teams, the two key areas for me is going to be penalties. USC gets penalized a lot. I mean, 79th in the country in penalty yardage per game, 57 yards. Northwestern, one of the more disciplined teams in college football, top 5 in the country in that regard, about 28 yards a game in that area. Northwestern, to pull the upset, has to run the football against this USC defense, ranked 61st in the country at 143 yards a game. If there's a weakness, it's always going to be USC's defense. Statistically this year, they're kind of middle of the pack. They're a decent defense. I mean, they're not top 20 in the country in any key area, but they're top 50-ish. They're solid. So they've got to play keep away from USC. Run the football and control the clock. And if there's one thing that Northwestern's been good at, it's been controlling the clock. They're averaging a little over 33 minutes of time of possession a game. That's the key here. And you've got to take advantage of your red zone opportunities, but Northwestern's not good in that area. So when we take all this into account, Preston Stone can have his best game to date. Griffin Wild at receiver there, 570 yards on the year, 39 catches, leading receiver for Northwestern. He can have a good game as well. I just don't think that it's enough to overcome the fact that USC, I feel like it's going to score points, and Northwestern's going to give the ball away once or twice, and that's going to be the difference in the football game. USC 31-20 is the prediction here for that one. Man, I tell you, that I hate when I do that. I wrote it down on my notes that this game was being played at USC. Got to tighten up. Been a long week so far. But how about a little group of 5 action? And I know that I had some people that reached out that said they really enjoyed the group of 5, kind of pick that I did last week. It was something different, Navy and North Texas. Clearly we were dead wrong on the prediction for that game. North Texas took them behind the woodshed and put belt to you-know-what on Navy. But either way, I feel like it's important to cover this because now that we have the initial rankings of the CFP and we have a group of 5 bid in the college football playoff, you're going to hear more of this from me from now to the end of the season. And one game that we're going to see on Friday night, 9 o'clock kick as well, is going to be Memphis and Tulane. Tulane going to Memphis. Let me get that right straight off the bat. Memphis favored in this game by 3.5. And the one area when I'm looking at these teams and when I've watched them play, because I've watched Memphis play a couple times this year, I've watched Tulane a little bit. Tulane's defense is not good. Not good. I think I wrote on my notes here in red pen, Tulane's defense is terrible with an exclamation point. So that tells you what I feel about Tulane's defense. When you watch them play, they're out of position a lot. They don't fill their gaps. Their secondary's got a lot of holes in it. Just don't have any faith in them whatsoever. I mean, you talk about they've given up over 400 yards a game. They give up 240 yards on the ground, or 240 yards through the air. They're giving up about 160 on the ground, and they're letting opponents score about 26 points a game on average, which makes them 80th in the country in that metric. They're also 112th in third down percentage. They don't do a good job of getting off the field, and they allow their opponents to score or to convert third down about 44% of the time. Likewise, on the flip side of that coin, Memphis is 43rd in that particular category, and they convert about 44% of their third downs. So you kind of flip that on its head there. And also Tulane, not very good at taking the ball away either. They're +1 in that margin. So they're taking it away more than they're giving it up, but it's almost a wash there. But when you compare that to Memphis, Memphis does a really good job taking the football away. They're top 10 in the country in that area at 6th. Tulane also heavily penalized. 121st in the country in that regard, 68 yards of penalties a game. To put that into perspective for you, that's out of 136 football teams that are graded in these metrics. 121 out of 136. Memphis, 31st. So nearly top 30 in the country. Memphis is a pretty disciplined football team, but it's not like they're top 10. They don't ever commit penalties. They still do. But I'm really impressed with Brendan Lewis's play so far this season. I mean, we've watched them take down some, Power 4 schools in key moments. A few weeks ago, big group of 5 game, we watched them, play his best game to date. He's got 1,869 yards on the year, 10 touchdowns, 4 picks, completing about 70% of his passes. So playing very, very free. When you got a guy like Lewis running the football as well, 557 yards this year, when you got him throwing the football and running the football like he is, it's hard to stop. He's a dynamic athlete, really good. Cortez Bram, 632 yards as well, catching the football. And the whole drama surrounding Jake Retzlaff, transferring from BYU to Tulane, a lot of people expecting him to really have a good season in that John Summerall offense down there in Tulane, but really, sub 60% in his completions. Tulane's a team that a lot of people had some faith in earlier in the year to get that Group of 5 bid. They've stumbled a little bit, losing to UTSA last weekend, 48-26. I mean, they got pounded by UTSA. Watching a little bit of the highlights of that football game is what led me to kind of look at this game a little bit more. And to me, I trust Memphis defense more than Tulane's because they're just better in every metric. And I know we say it's cliche, games aren't played on paper. Memphis just looks like the better football team right now. They're the clear favorite to get that Group of 5 bid. Them and James Madison, I feel like, are my two teams that I would say right now, if I were to bet on which team, those would be my top two that have the top two betting odds for me to get that Group of 5 bid is Memphis and James Madison. So therefore, I like Memphis to win in this spot. I like Memphis to win 30-26 here in this Group of 5 contest, thus covering the spread for Memphis. All right, we got to hydrate. We're getting into a little bit more substance now. All right, we got Georgia going on the road to Starkville, Mississippi. I've seen some people over the last few days call this a potential letdown spot for Georgia. I've seen it 11 a.m. Central, kick, noon Eastern. Mississippi State's played some, pretty good ball at this point. They've been in some contests. They had Texas. They had Texas beat at one point in that football game. Texas, you all saw it. Texas comes back, wins in overtime. And then last week, Mississippi State beats Arkansas to get a SEC win for Jeff Lebby and that staff. Blake Shapen last week, 242 yards, 2 touchdowns, interception. Camario Taylor, they're not really going to run the football that much. That's just characteristic of a Mississippi State offense here as of the last few years. Jeff Lebby's no different than Mike Leach. They don't run the football that much. They don't really run to set up the pass. They just pass. But Camario Taylor has been a little bit good. He's good at that change of pace a little bit, just enough to keep the defense honest in that regard, I think is what they use the running backs for at Mississippi State. But the big storyline here going to be Anthony Evans, played at Georgia last year, transferred to Mississippi State. Last week had five receptions for 111 yards, 2 touchdowns. So playing his best football going into this game against his former team. But what did I just say Mississippi State does really well? They pass the ball. Well, one key area that I figured they'd be higher in the country in this regard, but 47th in the country in pass yards a game at 250. I thought they'd be higher there. And when you look at the area to me, and as I sit here with a Georgia ball cap on, let me take it off. I've got headphones on, so this is the sound of me taking it off. Just use your imagination here. Sit it to the side. The area of concern for me as a Georgia fan has been the secondary this year. The secondary's been leaky. There's been some spots that teams have been able to exploit against Georgia. We saw it against Florida. We saw it against Tennessee. We saw it against Alabama. And Georgia's pass rush is non-existent. That's another area for concern for me watching this football team is the inability to rush the passer. Mississippi State gets the ball out quick. That's the offense. Blake Shapen, he's not going to sit back there for 4 or 5 seconds. He's not going to sit back there like a statue 4 or 5 seconds and scan the field and everything. They get the ball out quick. The quarterbacks that Georgia has struggled with, the offenses that Georgia has struggled with this year are very much in that same little bubble. You look at Florida's game plan. I was there in the flesh last week. I saw it. And you saw a Florida team that committed to, when they passed the football, they were going to get the ball out quick. Likewise, you've had teams like Tennessee. They got the ball out quick. Alabama. I think Ty Simpson finished that game. I think his average time from snap to pass was like 2.7, 2.8 seconds. So Alabama did a good job of that as well. So that is an area of concern that I'm going to be watching very close Saturday. Is going to be Mississippi State's ability to get the ball out fast, and can Georgia put any pressure on Blake Shapen? That's the big one. Georgia favored in this spot by 8.5 points. Now, the area that I've highlighted here in my notes is Mississippi State's defense is 93rd in the country, giving up 162 yards a game on the ground. Georgia, on the other hand, 42nd in the country, 184 yards a game. So Georgia outpacing that from Mississippi State, above Mississippi State's average of what they give up. And then also, Georgia's 23rd in third down percentage. They keep drives moving, and they also hold the ball for 33 minutes and 3 seconds on average. That's good enough for top 10 in the country. That is the area of where I think this game can be won for Georgia. And they're also 14th in the country in red zone defense. They're a very much bend but don't break defense. They give up a lot of yardage in between the 25 or the 20 and the 20. You know, from that distance right there, they give up a lot of yards in those 60-yard box in the middle of the field, essentially. Georgia's been vulnerable. But once they get to that red zone, Georgia's defense has found something. Once they get to that red area, they lock down and they hold teams to field goals, and they don't allow them to score much. So that, to me, two key areas: Georgia running the football, Georgia's red zone defense, going to be the difference in this football game. Also, the penalties for Mississippi State, 115th in the country in that regard. They're heavily penalized, not very disciplined on that side of the football. I feel like Gunnar Stockton has a really good day, but I also feel like this running back room for Georgia is going to have a field day. I think that Nate Frazier, Chauncey Bowens, I think you even see a little bit of Josh McCray in there as well, especially in short yardage and third down situations. Zachariah Branch really coming into his own here as of late too, emerging as the primary target for Gunnar Stockton. I know I think it was up until last game, Colby Young was still the leading receiver for Georgia. He's out the rest of the year with an injury. But Zachariah Branch, very much the focal point of this offense. Mississippi State, their defense, passing, not very good as well, 54th in the country. So I feel like Zachariah Branch has a big game. The stable of backs Georgia has a very big game. I think we see Georgia figure some things out. And I feel like they're going to run the football for 200 plus. I think they're going to hold the ball for about 35, 36 minutes. They're going to keep Mississippi State from getting in a rhythm offensively. I like Georgia to win this game. I like Georgia to cover. I've got the official prediction here, 33-20, Georgia over Mississippi State. Cowbells included. I don't think they'll make that much of a difference. All right, moving on. A game that I feel like will be a little bit more interesting than people think. And I wasn't going to pick this game. I wasn't going to look at it. And then something just told me I needed to look into these teams a little bit more, look at the numbers. But Oregon and Iowa is an interesting spot. Iowa coming into this game at 6-2, Oregon at 7-1. Iowa's defense, top 10 in the country across the board. Giving up 234 yards a game. That's second in the country. They fifth in passing at 151 yards a game. 10th against the run, 84 yards a game. Fourth in scoring, 13 points a game. Flip that to the other side to Oregon's defense. Fourth in the country in yards a game. First in passing. 31st in rushing. Sixth in scoring. The key area that I have highlighted here for Iowa. Iowa wants to pull the upset. Iowa's offense, running the football, 36 in the country, 185 yards a game. They run the football fairly well with Kamari Moulton. He's got 435 yards on the year, 82 carries. They run the football effective. Oregon can be ran on. We've seen it. There's been a couple instances this year where we saw Indiana run the football against Oregon. And I think this defense is vulnerable against the run, which is hard to say for a Dan Lanning coached defense. This isn't the same defense that he's had in Oregon in past, couple years, really. It's a little bit more of a, I wouldn't say really bend, don't break, but it kind of is. The area of concern here for Oregon defensively is going to be the fact that their red zone defense, they're giving up points on 100% of trips in the red zone. Teams are scoring at will against Oregon. And then Iowa's red zone offense, top 10 in the country. 94% of their red zone trips are points. So Oregon has got to do a good job of getting Iowa off the field on third down, not allowing them to reach that red area, not even giving them the opportunity to score. But these are just two. It's going to be a defensive showcase. And you think about Iowa, you think about a team that wants to shorten the game. They want to run the football. They want to be physical. They want to play good defense. They've done that up to this point this year, aside from the 2 losses that they have. But they've been able to do that pretty effectively. Oregon also, like this is the key area is going to be on the defenses here. But it's going to come down to whose offense do I trust more. And I feel that Iowa's offense is a little bit too one-dimensional. They don't pass the ball. They lean heavily on the run. They're 121st in yards a game. They're 132nd in pass yards a game. I feel like Oregon, the fact that their defense is just good enough, I think, to stop the run. And then in these big moments, I feel like Oregon is going to stand up. Oregon really can't afford to lose this game. I mean, yes, they're 7-1. I think a 2-loss Oregon, if they win out 10-2, I think they still make the playoff. But it's not a game that you want to drop. I think it's a low-scoring game. I just think that Oregon's way too talented of a team here to lose outright. But I do like the Hawkeyes to cover in this spot. Oregon, like I said, favored by 6.5. I like Oregon to win this one, but I like it to be 23-20. I like it to be tight. I think we see a field goal in the fourth quarter. And I think we see that field goal, and I think that's the difference in the football game there in Iowa. All right, getting into a little bit more of the meat and potatoes of the slate this weekend. And a big spot here for the Missouri Tigers. They got an undefeated Texas A&M sitting at 3rd in the country coming to their house. Vegas has little respect for A&M in this spot. A&M currently a less than a touchdown favorite. It's -6.5. So, big spot for Mizzou here. Missouri's offense, top 10 in the country in running the football. We know Ahmad Hardy, been a staple in that offense. That's going to be my player to watch in this football game. Him currently with 937 yards on the year, 159 carries, 11 touchdowns. Very much the workhorse of this Mizzou offense. And also, when you look at Missouri's defense, they're no slouch in that department either. Nearly top 10 across the board in every metric. But their defense will be tested because this A&M offense is no joke. You got a guy like Marcel Reed, they're top 20 in total offense per game, 11th in scoring. They're going to move the football down the field. They got guys like Casey Concepcion. They got Mario Craver, Ruben Owens at the running back position. And then you got to mention Marcel Reed. When you mention A&M, Marcel Reed gets brought up. That's the difference in the football game for a lot of times this year with A&M is the fact that they do have the playmakers on the outside with Concepcion, with Craver. They have Owens running the football, and then Reed kind of the puppet master, dictating the whole show. And Missouri's, Texas A&M's defense, though. Here's an area that I feel like Missouri can exploit, and that's the fact that this Texas A&M defense has given up about 119 yards a game, 33rd in the country in that regard. They both, A&M's defense, they're first in the country in third down. They do not allow their opponents to convert on third down. They do a good job of getting on the field, getting off the field. Cassius Howell, you've heard me talk about him on this show. The kid's a monster, like just a very good player. Very good reason why this A&M defense allows only 22% conversion rate on third down. They get after the quarterback. The key here, you're going to have, with Bo Pribula out for Missouri, you're going to have Matt Zollers in at quarterback, who is no slouch. I mean, he's a talented kid. It is at home. It's not on the road, so you don't have to deal with the hostile crowd. Got to stay out of obvious passing situations. Young quarterback making the start against a team like Texas A&M. You've got to stay out of obvious passing situations. You've got to play ahead of the sticks in this situation. Ahmad Hardy is going to need 25 touches in this football game, and he's got to make the most of those touches. Missouri's got to get a push up front, and they've got to go. Last time we saw A&M, woodshed beating of LSU. Missouri, last time we saw them, lost to Vanderbilt, 17-10. Couldn't get anything going. Yeah, Pribula got hurt, but Missouri still couldn't really get anything going there on the offensive side of the ball. I think in this spot, I think Mizzou tests A&M. To me, though, the Aggies, they're more of a well-rounded football team. So I'm not gonna sit here and talk crazy like I think that Missouri's gonna beat Texas A&M. I think this game is gonna be a lot closer than people think. I know, like I said, Vegas has little respect for A&M in this spot, but at the end of the day, it's about winning football games. Doesn't matter if you win them by 1, win them by 3, win them by 10, whatever. I think A&M wins a close one. I think Missouri gives it their best college try. I think that Ahmad Hardy has a good day. I just think the difference in this football game is the fact that A&M has playmakers on both sides of the football that can hurt you, and they win a close one, 27-24 there in Como. And another game, that I was really looking forward to. And like I said, the Florida State-Clemson spot kind of pisses me off because that game was supposed to be better. That was supposed to be a top 10 matchup for all the marbles in the ACC. Another game that was supposed to be a lot more interesting, and it's not, is LSU going on the road to Tuscaloosa to play Alabama. Alabama, the favorite in this one, rightfully so, at 10.5 points. The question here is going to be two teams that cannot run the football that well. Bama's only had one 100-yard rusher all year. I believe that was against Vanderbilt. I think, and it was Jam Miller against Vanderbilt, I think was the only 100-yard rusher that Alabama's had on the season. They're averaging 118 yards in that department. That's 114th in the country. LSU cannot run the football. 106th yards a game, 124th in the country in that regard. So, can they run the football is a question that I could ask both offenses. Because Alabama's defense is pretty soft against the run. LSU's defense better against the run than Alabama, but not much. 51st in the country for LSU in that regard, giving up 134 yards a game. Bama, 72nd, giving up 149. So neither team runs the football well, but neither team stops the run particularly well. Thus the clouds open up, and a beam of light comes down. Boom. And it's just a epiphany here. Whoever runs the football better is going to win this football game. And I know we talk about cliche sayings. That's another one. Whoever runs the football better is going to win this football game. But there's no freebies with Alabama. +9 in turnover margin. 8th in the country in that regard. Also, Bama extends drives a lot better than LSU does. LSU's been horrendous on third down this year. Alabama, 18th in the country, converting about 50% of the time. So, big if, capital I, capital F, if LSU wants to win this football game, wants to have a chance at pulling the upset, you got to run the football, you got to get off the field on third down. That's easy to say. It's easy to sit here and talk about it. But when you got a guy like Ty Simpson, who's playing probably the best in the country at the quarterback position, if not, you could make the argument the best, top 3 for sure. And then you have, Jam Miller, you have Jeremy Bernard, you have Ryan Williams. I think there's talk that Horton is going to be back. I think Brooks is going to be back for this football game as well. So Bama's going to have their full contingent of receivers back at full strength for this football game. That spells trouble for an LSU defense that, frankly is not, they're better against the pass than they are against the run, but they still give up nearly 200 yards a game in that department. This is a Bama passing attack that will exploit your weaknesses, and we've seen that happen time and time again this season. LSU I think they lose this game because they just can't get off the ground. They can't get the thing off the ground. The offense just has not been clicking, has not looked good, not in any regard. I mean, Garrett Nussmeier was supposed to be Heisman discussion, Heisman favorite. You had playmakers like Aaron Anderson. These guys were supposed to be really good this year, but haven't lived up to the hype. There is another thing to mention, and that is Brian Kelly's out. How does this team respond? Do they come out and play with their hair on fire? Do they come out and play inspired? They're going to throw their best punch at Alabama because it is Alabama and it's LSU. And we've seen some really good football games from these two teams. I think we're going to see a pretty good game into the second half. I don't think we see an A&M style just thrashing. But I think we see an LSU team that plays inspired through the first 3 quarters of this football game, and I think Bama pulls away late. I think Bama wins 30-20. So they don't quite cover the spread. I don't have them quite covering the spread, but I think that Bama pulls away late, and that's where the difference in the football game is from here. So, does LSU play inspired, or have they mailed the season in already? I think we'll find that out. I just think Bama's too good. Bama's clicking, plus off a bye week. Kalen DeBoer's 15-2 off a bye week, I think, in his career. So I don't think you're going to out-game plan Alabama, especially with a fill-in head coach. So the fact you can't run the football, Alabama's good on third down. Alabama's going to have all 4 receivers, all top 4 receiving options healthy. Ty Simpson playing good. 30-20. And I think that game could get out of hand. I'm not saying that it won't. I'm just saying I think we see an inspired LSU for 3 quarters, and then Bama just asserts their dominance, takes over. So after the whistles, game of the week, and I have a bone to pick about this one because we've got some games. We've got some games in prime time Saturday, and we've got this game kicking off at noon. And I get it. It's a Big 12 matchup. It's BYU and Texas Tech. I get it. But should be a primetime game. So we're going to give it a big boo on that one. B-O-O, boo. Halloween just, a few days ago. So still a little bit in the holiday spirit, whatever. But after the whistles, game of the week, BYU, Texas Tech. And man, this is very big, very big spot for both teams in this Big 12 race. We're trying to figure out who in this conference is going to be that top dog, who's going to get that Big 12 championship, who's going to get that auto bid in this conference. BYU looks good. They've had some really good wins this year. Texas Tech had the one stumble, but Texas Tech's good, y'all. Very good. Statistically good and good on the field. I mean, this is a team, they spent a lot of money on this roster. They've looked great. Now, they've looked bad at times. What team hasn't, right? But the areas here that I kind of highlighted, people have criticized the Big 12 for years of they don't play defense in the Big 12. Texas Tech, 10th in the country in yards given up. First against the run, 5th in scoring, giving up 13.2 points a game. When's the last time we saw a Big 12 defense that was like this? They do a good job of, getting after the quarterback. They do a good job of taking the ball away. Top 10 in the country, +8. So is BYU, 5th in the country at +10. So both of these teams do a very good job of taking the ball away. They do a good job of taking care of the football on offense. And offense, let's talk about that. Texas Tech, top 5 offense. 492 yards a game on offense. And scoring nearly 44 points a game. BYU kind of top third, 34th in the country. In a lot of their metrics, they're 15th, 19th. The area that I see here that BYU can kind of exploit is we've seen a secondary for Texas Tech that can somewhat be, I wouldn't want to say vulnerable is not really the word, but some people have been able to take advantage of that this year. And BYU being the passing offense, they're not that great. They're 85th in the country. But Texas Tech, if you're going to exploit an area, it's got to be that passing defense because you're not really going to have a lot of luck running the football against this Texas Tech defense. And that's the area where BYU really lives and dies, is in that area. 15th in the country there, 216 yards a game. BYU's defense, if this is a matchup between defense and defense, I don't like that matchup for BYU. But they do a great job of getting off the field on third down. That's a key area there as well. They're 16th in the country, 31.7% of the time they're allowing their opponents to convert on third down. So that is to me, that's the key right here. I've got a star beside that. BYU get off the field on third down. Both of these teams hold the ball. They possess the ball about even. 29 minutes for Texas Tech on average, 32 minutes on BYU on average. The key here is going to be one quarterback matchup. Behren Morton, Bear Bachmeier. Bear Bachmeier, freshman, been phenomenal this year so far. 1,693 yards, 11 touchdowns, 3 picks, completing about 63% of his passes on the year. But then you have a guy like Behren Morton, a little bit more experienced, 1,750 yards, 15 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 68, I believe, % completions. I think that this is a game where we see Bear Bachmeier, and I hate to say it because I like the kid. I like watching him play. I think he's really talented, but I think this is a game where we see his youthfulness and not in a good kind of way. I think we see some mistakes against this potent Texas Tech defense. I mean, not to mention them stopping the run, they get after the quarterback. They live in the backfield. I think pressure rate, they're top 10 in the country. So, one, BYU is going to have, they got to have a lot of trust in this freshman quarterback. I, unfortunately, do not. I like him. Like I said, I think he's, really good in that conference, really good in the country. I mean, you could make the argument he's, potentially top 10, top 15 quarterback in the country this year, statistically. And when you look at the play on the field and you look at it on the eye test, he's a really good quarterback. But this is a spot here going on the road, going into Lubbock against a team like Texas Tech with that defensive front. They're going to make BYU one-dimensional. The game is going to have to be won on Bear Bachmeier's arm, and I just don't think with his age, with his lack of experience, I don't think he's ready for this spot. I think BYU might be a tad fraudulent. I mean, and I've been high on BYU. Y'all have heard me on here. I've talked about how much I like this team and I like how much they fight. I like, I love the effort that they put out every week. But I think they may be a tad fraudulent. I don't think they're the best team in the Big 12. I think they're the third best team in the Big 12. Yes, they beat Utah, but I think that given another shot, I think Utah beats BYU. I like Texas Tech in this spot. I like Texas Tech to cover and win 30-16. Like I said, should be a primetime game. So, game of the week. As always, I will be posting that graphic. Give me your score prediction. The winner of that contest will get a gift card to the place of your choosing. And I have to kind of admit that I did forget to post the graphic last week for the game of the week, Texas and Vanderbilt. And so nobody was going to be able to win that one. I apologize. That's my bad. I had a lot going on with trying to get ready to go to the football game in Jacksonville. A lot going on at work that week. Just, bad week for me, regardless, to remember anything like that. So what I'm going to do is to penalize myself, I have added $10 to last week, and then I'm going to add the 5. I think we were at 30, if I'm not mistaken. So we're going to add 40. So we're going to do a $40, we're going to do a $40 gift card to the place of your choosing. If you get the score right in your score prediction, that you will post in the comments, and I will not forget to do it this time, I promise. Get it right, and we will. I will reach out to you personally if you win, and we'll get you a gift card to the place of your choosing, whether that be Starbucks, whatever coffee shop you want, whether that be Lowe's, whether it be wherever. Just let me know. You want to take your wife out to dinner, or ladies, if you want to take your husband out to dinner, whatever you want it. I will. I'll make it so. So, thank y'all for tuning in. Once again, another episode, another prediction showdown. College football. Oh man, I love it, but season's going by way too fast. Need it to slow down. Need it to. Here we are, week 11. We already got the CFP rankings. Oh gosh. I don't know what I'm going to do with myself after this season's over, but either way, once again, whether you tuned in on Spotify, whether you tuned in on Apple, whether you tuned in on Amazon, YouTube, whatever, appreciate you. Thank you for tuning in. It's been another episode of After the Whistle. I'll catch y'all Monday, recapping all of this weekend's action. Till then, y'all be safe. Enjoy the games this weekend, and I'll catch y'all Monday. See y'all.